Figured the best thing to do going into this chapter would be to uh, define what secularism is. Uh, could you do that for us, please?
Yeah, so in this case, I'm talking about a conception of society as um, with existing and operating without religion. Now, I'm not talking about the separation of church and state. The separation of church and state is actually something that comes out of biblical tradition and Christianity itself. Um, it's existed since the Old Testament. It's because people have a skepticism of fallen people in power. So I'm not saying that there's anything wrong or needs to be changed about separation of church and state. When I'm saying secularism, I'm using it in the modern sense. I'm drawing from authors such as Yuval Noah Harari and Steven Pinker, who both praise the secular society. And at the end of the chapter, I do talk about some concessions and say, hey, there are some things that we should hope that are emulated that we usually think of as secular. But in terms of the core idea and the proposal and the conceptions that underlie secularism, I think they're all um, I think they don't work, and they're pretty flimsy actually when you start to look at them. So that's what the chapter is about. Is we have this conception of the way that Noah Harari describes it is he says, I have a quote from him here. Secularism is a very positive and active worldview defined by a coherent code of values. It's sometimes just defined as the negation of religion, what we don't believe and what we don't do. But he's also saying it's a very active, positive thing. And he says secularism can provide us with all the values we need. And basically, he takes this image of secularism and paints it as the rosy conception of all the good things and none of the bad things. Um, and it just is complete nonsense. I mean, secularism is not a coherent code of anything, certainly because it doesn't have a foundation, as we'll get into. It also is not a good code of values. So yeah, that's what we're talking about. That sort of conception of the world is life scrubbed of religion, life between people where we never talk about religion and things seem hunky dory, which is sort of just the modern status quo, the temporary status quo. But